So this lesson is actually getting into some legit multiplication now. This is multiplication using 3, 4, 6, 7, and 8 as factors. And what we're going to be working on today is something that you will actually be using throughout the school year if you ever feel a little stuck on a problem. So we're going to be looking at the distributive property today. And honestly, the distributive property is kind of one of my favorites because I think it's really helpful. With the distributive property, all you're doing is you break apart a problem into two simpler problems. Meaning that no matter how challenging a multiplication problem may be, you can break it apart to make it a lot more, let's not say simple because that's subjective, to make it less challenging for you. So if I have 8 times 4, and I am finding that 8 times 4 is actually really challenging for me, and my brain is just not in the mood. You know what? Some days your brain is going to be in the mood for it. Some days it's not. And on days that it's not, you find what works for you. You have to make some adjustments that will help you get to the answer. Doesn't mean you don't understand it. It just means that, there are some days I don't feel like multiplying as much. So I have little tricks that help me get it done without stressing myself out about it. So let's say 8 times 4 is really a challenge for me. And I'm getting kind of frustrated with it because I don't want to have to use my fingers. Skip counting, I'm just losing my track. What I'm going to do is 4 is not that bad. I can handle 4, but 8 is a really big number. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to break 8 apart, and I'm going to turn it into 2 numbers that when added together would make 8. So 8 can be broken apart into 5 and 3. 5 is a very happy number to multiply with. I like multiplying by 5. I don't feel stressed out about that. 3s, it depends on the number I'm multiplying by 3. But for the most part, 3s aren't bad either. So I like 5 and 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn 8 times 4 into a broken up problem. Now this is the number that's getting broken up. This is the number that stays put. So what I do is I put it into parentheses. So I make a parenthesis and I take one of my numbers, so that 5 will go there. 5 times 4. And then I make a plus sign, another set of parentheses, and I put in my 3. 3, and that 4 stays put, times 4. So now I have broken apart and made 2 separate multiplication problems that are, in my opinion, for what I need at that moment, something that I feel less stressed out about and more confident in doing. I can handle 5 times 4. What is 5 times 4?
20.
5 times 4 is 20. What is 3 times 4?
12.
12. So now I'm just adding up. 20 plus 12. What is 20 plus 12?
32.
32. That was pretty stress-free, right? Now, some of you might be looking at this and looking at me like, for real, lady? Come on.
Yeah.
That's okay. Remember what I've told you before. This is something brand new that we're learning how to do. Why would we learn how to do it with something very challenging? Don't you think that maybe sometime in the future you're going to come across problems that are double and triple the size and you'll have to break them down? Yeah. So understanding how to do it is going to help us do it later. When we're learning how to do something, we're not going to learn how to do it with something extremely challenging. We learn how to do it something that we are confident in. We're learning the skill, not the math. We know this math. We're learning the skill. So please see it that way. If you feel like this is a little too simple for what your tastes are, just remind yourself, it's the skill, okay? So let's practice some more, because I've just done a lot of arrows and a lot of lines. And once you kind of go back and look at it, it's sort of like, huh?
Yeah,
so what I want you to do is I want you to write this with me. I want you to write this with me. So let's look at number 1. And it says 6 times 8. All right. So number 1 is showing me 6 times 8. 6 times 8, let's say it is really tricky. And you know what? Honestly, 6 times 8 is a trickier one. That's one that I really have to memorize. And it's hard for me to bring it up. So I'm looking at this and I'm struggling with it. I can't just bring it up on the top of my head. I don't have a math brain where I can look into the sky and numbers appear and I have the answer. Some people do. I don't. So I have these tricks that help me. So I see 6 times 8. I'm going to decide, okay, which number do I want to break apart and which number is going to stay the same? Once I decide that, then I set myself up. So what do I think would be easier to multiply by? In my opinion, the one that needs to be broken apart is the bigger one. The bigger number should be the one that's broken down. 8 can be broken down into 5 and 3, like we just did. But guess what else it could be broken down into? 4 and 4. If I were to break 8 down into 4 and 4, I only need to know one multiplication fact. So 6 times 8 will now become, and that 6 becomes the constant, that 6 stays put, parentheses, 6 times one of my 4s, close my parentheses, make a plus sign, new parenthesis, 6 stays put because that did not change. And now the other half of the 8, which is, again, 6 times 4. What is 6 times 4?
24.
24. So underneath that, I'll write 24, and then again, I'll write 24. What is 24 plus 24?
48.
48. Could I have broken up the 6 instead? And could I have done 8 times 3 plus 8 times 3?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can. You can play around with it and you can see which one you like the most. Let's look at number 2. It's asking me to solve 7 times 3. All right. If I break apart that 3, I'm just going to be doing 7 times 2 and 7 times 1. That's pretty manageable, isn't it? So in this case, I don't want to break up the largest number because the 7 would make some bigger problems now. But hello, 7 times 1 plus 7 times 2, I can totally do that. I can totally do that. So the 3 is going to get broken apart. It's going to become a 1 and a 2. My 7 is my constant. It stays put. It never leaves. So my first parenthesis is going to be 7 times 1, close my parentheses, plus
7 times 2.
7 times 2. And then underneath I write what my answers are. 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 2 is 14. And what is 14 plus 7? 21. And the only reason I'm pretty sure we were able to say that number so fast is not because we added it in our head, but because we do know what 7 times 3 is.
Yeah.
Remember, this is the skill we're learning. And when we're learning a new skill, we want it to be with some math that we find less challenging so that we're not focused on the math, we're focused on the skill and learning how to do it. if I were to ask you to do 72 times 48,
Okay.
okay, that would be overwhelming.
Um,
That's not the point of this lesson. The lesson is learning this certain way, okay?
I need paper. I need paper.
All right, moving on to number 3. Please also pay attention to how I'm organizing this. Because I'm writing on the second line with my problems, I am skipping still an entire line between each one so that it's very easy and clear for me to see. All right, the last one is 9 times 5. Which one do I want to break up?
9,
Okay, so if I were to break up the 9, how would I break up the 9?
4, and 5.
4 and 5. Because I like multiplying things by 5. Multiplying things by 5, that's something that comes to me pretty fast. So I like that one. If I'm going to be able to choose that one, that's what I want to do. So that means now my 5 is the constant. It will always be there. It will be in both parentheses no matter what. The 9 is what's getting broken apart. So I'll start with my 4. 4 times 5 plus, now I put in my 5. 5 times 5. Notice also how I put circles around the numbers once I've written them in. That helps me keep track of what I have done. Or you can cross them off too. So what is 4 times 5?
20.
20. What is 5 times 5?
25.
25. What is 20 plus 25? 45. So this distributive property, this breaking apart the multiplication sentences, that is a skill that you will use throughout the entire school year. And there will be other ways that I'll show you that are kind of the same, but write it out a little differently, because some people like to write in a different way. So it's up to you on how you use this, but this will really help you out if you're feeling stuck. This is a skill that you can always come back to. So let's do number 5, where we have a word problem. On Friday, Darnell received a box of skateboard wheels from the factory. The box contained 12 sets of 4 wheels. How many wheels were there in all? The box had 12 sets of 4 wheels. So what is it asking me to do? It's asking me to multiply 12 times 5. Okay, this is a bigger number. So I don't know why I said 5. You're correct, it is 4. 12 times 4. So now this is the biggest number I've dealt with by far. Which one am I going to break up? The 12. And what am I going to break the 12 into? 6 and 6. That means I only have one multiplication problem to solve. And then I just got to add it up. So, parentheses, 6 times 4, close parentheses, plus, parentheses, 6 times 4, parentheses. Why are they written in parentheses? Why are they written in parentheses?
So they can separate.
To show that they are separated, and also to show that this is the order that they need to be done in. Later on in the year, we'll learn about PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. It tells you the order of how you can solve a problem. And whenever you see something in parentheses, that means solve me first. So I solve what's inside the parentheses first, and then I add them up. So what is 6 times 4?
24.
24. And then another 24. What is 24 plus 24? I'm not even going to think about that because guess what? I just did that up here already.
Same exact problem.
A lot of times in math, you might see something has repeated itself. If you've already done the work, you can just go back and check over and see where you did it and write the answer. It's another way to sort of cheat, but not cheat, but it's a trick. It's a little trick you can use. Okay, are we feeling good about this?
Yeah.
If we are not feeling good about this, you just come right up and see me afterwards, okay? So we're going to practice on our own 6 through 24, okay?